Hi, Danville. Alan Shields here, Chief of Police for the town, and we're 10-8 in service, which means we're here to make people's lives better, and we do that by safeguarding the lives, rights, and property of everyone we serve. This was not a great week. We'll just start with that. 2 robberies. That's very, very unusual. If you think about it, last year, for all of 2022, if you rack up homicide, rape, robbery, and aggravated assault, all 4 of those Part 1 crimes, we had a total of 10. We had 2 of them last week alone. That's not a good week. So we'll get into that, but let's cover some of our topics here first. Well, first, this is a live show. If you have a question, ask it in the chat, and I'd be happy to answer it. I'll usually hang out in the chat for about 10 or 15 minutes after the show. If you have questions beyond that, you can always just email me directly, and I'd be happy to answer your questions. I am monitoring both Facebook and YouTube, so feel free if you're watching live on either one of those. We've got a few on each platform. Go ahead and ask your question there, and I'd be happy to get to it. And if I can't get to it during the show, I'll make sure I get to it afterwards. We're getting to the tail end of wildfire season here, but this is when we get some of the bad ones. Please go ahead and download this FEMA All Hazards Checklist. This is for those infrequent events, but the ones that if they do happen, they're very, very hazardous, and there is some good information in there. Wildfire can help you be prepared prior to, get ready for it if it does happen, and then how do you survive afterwards? What are you going to do in the days, the weeks, and the months after? Also, sign up for, this is an opt-in. Sorry about that. It is an opt-in where you have to opt in for our Sheriff's Community Warning System, and then also download our Wildfire Preparedness and Evacuation Guide. It's an excellent guide that's got information on what you can do to be prepared. How do you prepare yourself? How do you prepare your pets? How are you going to get information from us that there is something going on? So I see Bob Fick in there. Bob, hi, from Northern Idaho. Shouldn't be too cold up there yet, I hope. And then Gina, thanks for checking in. We appreciate your support and help. Anyone that's watching this, we'd encourage you, like the video, make sure you're subscribed either to Facebook or YouTube, and then send it to one of your friends, and we'll make sure to get that. But that's how we keep this channel going. That's how we get the support. Okay, so I'm looking at Mr. Games says, hey, Chief, hope y'all are doing okay. I'm going to go ahead and take your advice that you gave me. Love for all your deputies and officers out there. Great. We appreciate the support. And again, if you have questions, go ahead and shoot them here. We'll get to them. All right. It's kind of impersonal when we're doing this online, right? We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, and we're sort of having a conversation. But if you want the real deal, we're going to be at Coffee with the Cops, Starbucks, and this is the one, because we have a few of them in town. This is the one in the Rose Garden Shopping Center. That's at the corner of Camino Ramon and Sycamore. So right there where SN and I think it's the Yellow Chili is. Really good restaurants. So it's a great spot. Good spot to meet us. We'll be out there Thursday, August 31st. That is tomorrow between 8:30 and 9:30 in the morning. So you can catch us over there. All right, we're going to get on to one more announcement. If you want to see us with a little more detail, you can actually join our Citizens Academy. It's starting come October 4th. And this is a good chance. It's 7 weeks long. It seems pretty crazy that you would dedicate 7 weeks to this program. But, well, as an example, look in that picture. You're going to get to go and see our helicopter. It's a great program. This is where we take a lot of our staff, and we want them to meet you. We want you to meet them. And we're going to show you everything that we use to keep Danville safe. And frankly, our greatest asset to keeping Danville safe is all of you. It's the relationship that we share with you. And that's what we're trying to cultivate. So we want a relationship with you. We want you to understand what it is your police department does. It's also how we bring on volunteers. We bring them on through the Citizens Academy. And the other side is we want to make sure that if there's an opportunity for us to do better, we want to make sure that we're getting that feedback. And the Citizens Academy is a great opportunity because at the end of each session, we'll ask you what we can do better. You'll let us know, and we'll work to improve service in town. So Sue says, and I'm assuming she's talking about the Citizens Academy. She asks, not long enough, and not long enough is right. And it's funny because when people join the Citizens Academy, sometimes we have to actually talk people into it. And then by about the second, third, and fourth week, it gets rolling, and they're really starting to enjoy it, and students are really engaged. By the 6th week, they're really wanting at least a couple more weeks, and they just want to learn more. And that's great. What that means is that that we are providing service in a way that is at a very professional level, and that we're doing it the way that Danville wants. Here's the interesting thing. Everybody knows I'm a sheriff's employee. I'm here on a contract to the town of Danville. We do services different in Danville than we do in Alamo, than we do in San Ramon, than officers do in maybe Moraga, or pick your police department. That's not to say that it's better or worse. It just simply means that we listen to all of you. And when all of you tell us, these are our important issues. We want cars to slow down on Sycamore and Comunidad Sahara. We want less crime in our downtown area. When you tell us what your priorities are, we listen. When San Ramon's city tells them, hey, these are our priorities, they listen. So all of these areas that I've listed, we all provide excellent service, but we're able to do it in a way that suits the needs of the community that we serve. So I hope that works well. And if you go to our Citizens Academy, you will certainly see that and appreciate that. All right, on to the blotter. CommunityCrimeApps.com. You can download this. You can see we upload there several times a day. And we also, this display is going to get me here. Let's go back here. I'm going to have to restart that. All right. Let's see if we can get it going here. All right. So CommunityCrimeApp.com, you can download there. Let's look at the collisions. Not a horrible week, but certainly more than we had last week. One injury, one property, and then 2 hit and runs. The hit and runs look like they were more parking lot style hit and runs. On the 21st, we had an injury collision on San Ramon Valley Boulevard near Sycamore. On the 21st, we also had a non-injury hit and run, and that was in the parking lot of 310 Harts Avenue. That's over there by the Patelco Bank, between Patelco and the Bevmo. It's that real tight parking lot. On the 23rd, we had a solo vehicle non-injury collision on Diablo Road between Avenida Nueva and Alameda Diablo. This is a one-vehicle collision where on that windy road, the vehicle left the roadway, didn't strike any other people or cars. And then on the 27th, we had another non-injury hit-and-run collision on the 1100 block of Mustang Drive. On to crime. We'll see if we can keep this rolling while the iPad's playing nice with us. Crime was not great. Those 2 robberies, and I'll talk about them a little bit more and maybe give some preventative advice. On the 23rd, we had a stolen SUV from a residential parking lot on the 300 block of Diablo Road. On the 24th, we had an armed robbery, and this was a lady that was seated inside her car at the Livery Shopping Center. I'll cover that a little more off slide. On the 25th, we had a theft of a purse from a locked vehicle parked at Hat McGee Dog Park. And shortly after, the victim was alerted because her credit cards were used at a nearby town. On the 26th, we had a residential burglary on Arenz Drive. An unlocked vehicle was rummaged through. The garage door was in the vehicle, and it was used to open the garage, and where the people then tried to go into the garage in the home area. On the 27th, the carjack and robbery of ex-girlfriend's vehicle by the ex-boyfriend. Let's talk about one first. So that residential burglary on Arenz, that never had to be a residential burglary. One of the things we recommend is please do not leave your garage door opener, the physical opener. So if it's a device, don't leave that device in the car. The other thing that, and frankly, I had to do this. I had to go home because I had seen some of these, and this is maybe 2 months ago. I have a pickup truck, and it's got those programmable buttons. Me not being that smart, I thought that when I turned my car off and I went into my house, that those buttons didn't work. Well, I thought I'd test it. So I go out to the car, I get in the car, and I hit the buttons, and it'll open the door. So if someone were to have broken into my truck, they could have easily had access to my house. Excuse me. So I had to deprogram those buttons and make sure that those did not work. And so I would recommend check your car, make sure that it will not operate your garage door when not there. We've talked about it on some of the other ones, but there's also, we need you to think about your garage door emergency opener, and those can be bypassed pretty easy. So if you have a garage door opener and the power goes out and you don't have a battery backup, one of the ways you open your door is you pull that red handle, and that disengages the garage door from the motor, and that allows you to simply lift up the door. What we recommend is find some way to make it so that is more difficult to access. And we've mentioned that before, but try to secure your garage as best you can. Now, on the armed robbery for the lady, this was inside the Livery Shopping Center. It was near one of the banks. She wasn't doing anything wrong. I mean, again, we don't victim shame here. You should be allowed to leave your garage door up and open. You should be allowed to sit in your car anywhere you want. She was simply seated in her car. People came up, and kudos to our victim. What they asked for, they got. We don't want people getting hurt over simple property. That shopping center does have cameras in the area, and so you can guarantee that we have devoted a lot of resources from an investigative standpoint to work on that case and hold those people accountable. That is a tough one. What I would say, though, if we're trying to not be a victim, really understand our environment, realize that shopping centers, parking lots like our park and ride, our larger municipal lots, there may very well be people doing a few different things. We've shown a couple of weeks in a row where people are doing distraction thefts there, right? Where they're going up and they're distracting people, putting fake jewelry, taking real jewelry off. We've seen it, and we know where people will scope out those parking lots, and all they're trying to do is simply take a person's purse or a backpack from their car when they're unloading groceries. We've also seen it where people have been followed from areas and followed into town. So our recommendation is when you get to the area that you're going to visit, hop out of the car and go to the location you're going to, and then look around and just be aware of your surroundings. When it comes to the carjack, the robbery of the ex-girlfriend and ex-boyfriend, those are a little tougher because those come out of domestic situations, so they're not random; they're very targeted. So we did have 2 robberies last week. One totally, innocent victim, unrelated to the suspect. The second one, innocent victim, but related to or knows the suspect. And so those can be a little bit more challenging. All right, I'm gonna check the chat. Looks like a couple of questions may have come in. Yeah, Dina, she says interesting that the opener worked without the truck power on. Yeah, I was shocked. I didn't think it worked, but it did. So I had to make sure. So on YouTube, Mr. Games is asking, can you tell us your craziest story while on duty? So I don't usually do that online. I do give my quote unquote worst day in the Citizens Academy. So if you're interested in that, please come join our Citizens Academy, and we have very frank and open conversations on that. But I will say this, most officers would tend to agree. We get people that try to hurt us. We get people that try to do bad things to us. Those can be bad days, but I think my worst days, just in general, are anytime that I'm investigating or responding to or involved in a case that involves kids. Those can be some of the saddest days, and they're really the toughest because you realize that there's a lifetime of trauma that's going to live with that child, and it was usually done to them by an adult, and sometimes by an adult that they trust. And so those can be some of the most frustrating calls. So great question, but if you want to hear my worst day, you got to come to the Citizens Academy. Okay, so Larry says, Chief, do the bicycle swaths in the center of the vehicle lanes on Camino Ramon between Greenbrook and Fostoria encourage kids on bikes to intermingle with 2-ton automobiles? So Larry, that's a good question. I don't have a great answer for you. Typically, if you're asking for my recommendation, well, let me give you the law first. The law says that a bicycle is a vehicle when it's in the roadway, and it's to operate under the vehicle code and follow all the rules of the road. If they're supposed to ride to the rightmost portion of the roadway as practical. However, if there are hazards or other things, they can actually move towards the center of the road. That's generally it. If you pull up the vehicle code, I'm sure you can fact check me on a couple of those words, but that's basically the gist of it. Now, oftentimes I'll give advice that maybe is contrary to the law. And I don't mean contrary as in I'm telling people to break the law. That's not what I'm doing. But just simply because the law allows you to do something right in a lane, should you? Right? And I'll give you a couple of examples. The first one is when I ride up Mount Diablo, I go out the Diablo roadway. So I'll come from El Cerro, I'll shoot straight up to Diablo Road. Instead of taking the winding Diablo Road part, I take the Barbara Hale Trail. And that's the path that I choose to go. I do that because it's safer. Can I ride in the middle of the road? Sure, I can ride in the middle of that road and I can take it the whole way up, but I don't think it's as safe as another route. So maybe I turn my Strava down for that segment and I say, I'll be okay. Now, the Sharrows. I actually ride that section of Camino Ramon quite a bit. That is an option for me, but I'll say most of the time, even me as an adult, and I tend to ride maybe 20, 25 miles an hour when I'm on the road on my road bike. I don't take Camino Ramon. I usually prefer to take the Iron Horse Trail, and I take it all the way. I cross Sycamore and I go underneath the freeway. And then when I can get onto a road that's 25, like Danville Boulevard as it turns into Hearts, as it turns into San Ramon Valley Boulevard, and I get a bike lane, then I'll ride. And that's what I choose to do. So what I ask people to do is choose the wisest path for you. That may mean that you ride an extra mile, but you're much safer during that ride. And so if we're talking to our kids, and my kids ride bikes, well, my younger one now actually, rides bikes all over town. We help him plan his trip. So if he's going to a friend's house that's on the other side of town, or if he's going up towards Blackhawk, or if he's going down towards the lot in San Ramon, I'm going to give him the path that I want him to take, but I'm also going to explain why, right? I could tell my son, go ahead and take Camino Ramon the whole way down, hook a left, hook a right on, the other Camino Ramon, and take that all the way down, and you're there. The safer path is just to take the Iron Horse Trail all the way down and then use those crosswalks by the transit center. And so we try to give him those advice. So those sharrows are there because there are people that can ride in that road. It isn't intended to encourage every single person to go out there. We always encourage people, please pick the safest path for if you're driving a car, for your driving abilities. If you're not comfortable driving on the freeway, figure out a different path. If you're in that sharrow area and you realize that cars are passing you pretty quick and they're simply doing the speed limit and they're giving you the 3 feet, they're not doing anything illegal, maybe you might want to consider a different path. All right, so looks like I've got a few more questions here. Dina says, I don't understand the comment about the garage when the power is out, manual feature. How would a criminal access since they would? Dina, what I'll do is instead of trying to answer it here, I'll get some graphics up and I'll even get a little video that shows you. In fact, if you watch my update next Tuesday, so I will show it on Wednesday, there was a series of crimes that were happening, residential burglaries, where people were going into garages and they were using that emergency rod or that pull handle to do it. So, Dina, I'm going to kind of put a pin in answering that question, and I'll do it next week, and I'll give you a much better answer, and I think I can make it very clear with some videos or video and some graphics. Sue says, unfortunately, kids do not follow the rules or the law for the most parts. Also, the kids on motorized scooters are getting out of control, darting in and out of traffic. Sue, you're absolutely right. It is very hard to get compliance amongst kids. If you think about it, for me, we take our kids to a park, they ride a bike, and it's real random. There's not really rules of the road in a park. If you take them to a bike park, there's not rules of the road. It's about jumping off a curb or doing this, and they're all over. And I think I mentioned a couple weeks ago, we did have a kid that was hit by a car, and I think he was either on a bike or a scooter. And I was up there kind of in that time, and I saw the kids in that shopping center, the Safeway shopping center, and they were coming from all different angles, and it was really a challenge to see. And although the rules of the road, for the most part, don't apply in a parking lot, stop signs, speeding, and all that, really the only thing enforceable is DUI, reckless driving, and those sort of violations. It's still a good idea to follow the rules of the road. It's still a good idea to teach our kids the rules of the road. So one of the programs that we have where we go into the schools, and it's actually a co-program between San Ramon and Danville, and it's actually headquartered over in San Ramon, but we provide officers to help support it, is the Street Smarts program, where we go to the schools and we have bike rodeos. So we teach kids how to wear helmets. We'll set up cone patterns and have them kind of ride through those cone patterns. And then we teach them safe operations on the road. So we do make the effort to educate. And frankly, we do cite as well. So if we see it, those are infractions. So we have to actually see it. But if we see it, we can cite, we can call parents, and we can do those things. So Craig says, same question. The bike path seems to merge randomly with the road. If the speed limit is 40 and the bike is going 10, it seems like a bad combination. Craig, just help me out in this one. Which specific road are you talking about? Are you talking about the Camino Ramon section, or is there a specific road? And maybe I can get a better handle on answering that question. All right, so let's move on to the next topic. We'll set this this show up here, see if it takes. All right. So we talk about this maybe once or twice a year, and it is the DEA's campaign on One Pill Can Kill. The DEA, to my knowledge, and you can fact check me, I might be wrong, but I believe from what I've seen and what I've talked to about with the DEA agents, they've only really given 2 PSAs. They're not big on doing these public service announcement pushes, and the only 2 they've done are for fentanyl, and it's because it is that dangerous, that deadly. And I've got a couple of graphics that I want to show you because I think they demonstrate how how hard it is to identify, and then how easily it can kill. So please look at these. So in the one pill can kill, that amount on that head is enough for an overdose. And I know that there's tolerance issues where you can have people that may be high opiate users. They can build up more of a tolerance. But the bottom line is, if you, a child, someone gets a pill from someone else, if it simply has that much fentanyl in it, it could very well be a level that would cause an overdose. It is that dangerous. I mean, we got to the point where we don't do as much testing of drugs in the field anymore. We try to put the gloves on, we handle it. We don't try to assume we know what that drug is, whether it's meth or heroin or if it's fentanyl. We put it in, we send it to the lab, and the people that specialize in this, they will test that. The bottom line is it doesn't take very much to make for a lethal dose of fentanyl. So if you look, the number of fake pills that are out there, the DA of the ones they tested, 6 out of 10 contain a potentially lethal dose. And the example that was given, and it's pretty interesting, is think about it like this: like if you get a pill from someone else, and our recommendation is only take the pills that you get prescribed from a doctor and you physically get from the pharmacist. Never take someone else's pill. Never take someone from anyone, because that pill you may think it's an OxyContin, some other type of pill. It could be an oxycodone. It could be an Adderall, a Xanax. You don't know, and it could be pressed in a lab, and you're not going to know what's in it. And what they do is they use like a chocolate chip cookie example. You could look at that cookie. It looks like it's got 3 chocolate chip cookies in it. That's a non-lethal dose of fentanyl representative. But really, how many times have you looked at a cookie like that, taken a bite, and there's like 20 chocolate chips in there? The bottom line is you just don't know what's in that pill, so don't take it. And here's a good example. I want you to look at this. We have these pill guides that tell us how to identify pills, and it may look like a pill, but it may not be the real deal. So take a look at these. Up there in the upper left, you've got an authentic Adderall pill, and then you have a fake Adderall pill to the right. In the Xanax in the lower left, you've got an authentic Xanax on the lower left and a fake Xanax on the right. The oxycodone pills, the authentic ones on the left, the fake ones on the right. They both have kind of discrepancies or blemishes on them. I wouldn't be able to tell those apart. So I have to put my faith and trust in the doctor that's prescribing the pill and in the pharmacist that is giving me the pill. So our recommendation is please only take those pills that are prescribed by the doctor that you get from the pharmacy. Make sure whether, and especially if it's pills that are prescribed to you, make sure they're out of reach of kids. Make sure they're in good lockable containers. They're out of reach. We just would lock ours up in a safe. And then if we no longer need them, so we're done, like the surgery's done, we're out of the pain cycle, we're good, we have a drop off here. So anytime throughout the year, you can come during business hours and you can drop those pills off and we'll take them. We also do a couple of drives throughout the year, usually in spring and fall, where we'll be out front on like a Saturday or Sunday, and you can come in and drop them off. So please take that to heart. Really pay attention. I know sometimes I've kind of heard the horror stories where someone gets hurt. It's a Sunday afternoon. They're going to go to the doctor tomorrow, but they're just going to get this one pain pill, a Percocet or something from a friend, and they'll take it and that'll get them over the hump till the next day. Don't do that. I'm telling you right now, it's not worth it. You never know. It could be a good friend of yours. You just don't know where they got the pill. For me, it's not worth trusting my life. The other thing is, and I'll share this story with you because I think it's important. I'm very sensitive to pills and those things. I mean, with working where I work, seeing what I see, I'm very sensitive to it. One of my sons was having a surgery. He goes in, the doctor says, hey, I'll give him something for pain. I said, we don't do that in our house. He says, oh, I'll give him something anyway. I'm like, we're not going to do that. And then he also tries to prescribe me naloxone. And naloxone is a small device. It's an inhaler. It looks like an inhaler, and you would just put it in the nose. So if someone was going through an opiate overdose, it is something you could use. It's very easy to use. There's really no negative side effects to it. You can't hurt someone by giving it to them, but it can, if someone is having an opiate overdose, they can actually it can hold off those symptoms for a period of time long enough for you to get them to the hospital. Well, I was a little full of myself, and I'm like, well, that's not how our family works. We're not going to do that. And then the nurse actually pulled me aside, and nurses, smartest people in the hospital. She's like, why wouldn't you take something that could save your kid's life if he happened to have that? And I felt pretty silly, right? It's like having a lock on your door. So for us, I took the prescription, I got it prescribed. It sits up in the medicine chest, and if needed, break glass, and it's there. So our recommendation too, if you are prescribed opiates, or if you have kids in the house that may be experimenting, it's a good idea to get that naloxone and keep it there, and just be prepared. All right. That's the one pill can kill. If you have questions about that, or if you'd like more information on it, you can always call us, and we'll get you more information. I'm going to go through the chat. It looks like there's a few more questions here. So Sue says the frightening part is the scooters being ridden in and out of traffic and parked cars on Harts Road in the dark, and Diablo Road is where I've experienced it the most. So you're right. We are seeing them all over town. Kids are riding them up and down the streets. They're riding them on the sidewalks. And the bottom line is the rules for scooters are nearly the same as a bicycle. If you're on the road, you got to follow the rules of the road. If you're under a certain age, you got to wear a helmet. And so we do work to enforce those. Oh, so Craig, so Craig follows up. So let me read Craig's first question. Craig says, same question. The bike path seems to merge randomly with the road if the speed limit is 40. And if the bike is going 10, it seems like a bad combination. And what he's pointing out is the section of road that is Camino Ramon, essentially between Sycamore and Fostoria. So the San Ramon city limits all the way to the Sycamore, the Rose Garden Shopping Center. So here's the issue with that, Craig. That's not actually a bike lane. All of that, and what Craig is talking about is essentially a white stripe. Here, let me do this. So it's a white stripe that's in the road. And that white stripe is actually meant to separate the, no, my map's not working. So that white line is actually designed to separate the travel lane for a vehicle and where parked cars are supposed to be. What ends up happening, though, is the parked cars will typically or bicycles will go from the travel lane where in those green bike things, they're actually called sharrows for sharing arrows. And so the bicycle will drive down the vehicle travel lane as there's a car, and then they'll dip back into the lane where really it's not a lane, it's where parked cars are supposed to be, and then they'll come back out. So you're absolutely right. I'm not going to say as a cyclist, as a matter of practicality, that I don't do that, because there's long stretches of road on Camino Ramon where there are no parked cars. And then you'll hit about between El Capitan and Paraiso, you'll start seeing some cars parked there. And then at the next apartment complex up by the Rose Garden Shopping Center, you might see a couple of cars. Again, I have to give the advice to the cyclist that you really got to pay attention to the road. At that point, that cyclist they've left the roadway. So if they're going to change lanes or enter that lane, the responsibility is on them to do that. They're not supposed to just blindly go and cut off a car in that lane and expect everything's going to be okay. And I think survivability would say that's not a good idea. So Craig, you're absolutely right. That can be really confusing. It can be tough. Technically, the cyclist should just stay in that lane the whole time. They shouldn't go where parked cars are supposed to go. They do it because it's probably safer. But if they choose to do that and then they go back in the travel lane, the obligation is on them to make that lane change safely. So Mike G says, another great podcast. Back to school night in San Ramon. Danville's lucky to have such a great PD. Appreciate that, Mike. And that reminds me, we're actually kicking back up. We usually don't do it the first week because we want school to get ramped back up. So we wait a few weeks, and we're going to start jumping back into the schools and doing our recess with the cops. And I think we're kicking that off next week. So you can look for us to be in the schools. Nothing's crazy going on. We're just simply there to meet with the kids and kind of talk about what it is the police do and how we help. Okay, so I'm looking. So Bobby says they may as well lower it to 30 miles per hour because no one seems to be able to go 40. Maybe they are on their phones, which is another issue. So, Bobby, you'll be happy to know that one of my officers tends to specialize in those phones. He's one of our motor officers, and he writes a ton of those tickets. And frankly, I encourage them to. So if you're on your cell phone, please be careful. Please warn everybody that you know that Danville PD is certainly out writing these tickets. We're also writing speeding tickets. We're writing stop sign tickets. And to answer the question, well, why are you writing those tickets? Those are the things that are causing us the most accidents. It's inattention, speeding, running stop signs. Those are the ones that are causing us the most accidents. So please pass that word around. But Bobby, good observation. All right, that looks like it's all. So let me go back to the PowerPoint here. If you want to see us live, we've got a great opportunity coming up, and that's with our Coffee with the Cops. And we're going to be out at, apparently we're going to be nowhere. We're going to be at the Rose Garden Shopping Center. See if that works. No, not going to work. All right. I think that's going to be it for the slides then. We'll be at the Rose Garden Shopping Center tomorrow between 8:30 and 9:30, and that's going to be at 730 Camino Ramon. And it's a good time. So please come down if you want to chat with us. If you have any questions, concerns you want to raise, maybe you don't feel comfortable putting them on here, throw them up through us there, and we'll make sure we get to them there. Also, that FEMA All Hazards Guide, there's a link right in the description. Just click on it, download it. I would print it out personally, go over it with your family, stick it in a drawer, and just leave it there and be done. Hopefully what it'll do is it'll trigger something and say, oh, we need some more food storage. I know for me, I've got 3 boys, my wife, we've got a ton of food in the house at any one point in time, but I still have, the month and a half worth of dry food just in bins, just ready to go. And the stuff lasts for like 20 or 25 years. So it's a good time. And I've eaten some of those when I was in the military, those MREs, and they're really not bad. So if in a pinch you need it, it's good to have it. Also sign up for our community warning system. That link is down in the description. And then download our community wildfire preparedness and evacuation guide. Dina says, were the people armed at the livery robbery? Yes, they were armed. It was an armed robbery, and they did have a gun. Oh, Bob Ficken, good. Yeah, this is great. So Bob says, please don't forget that driving under the influence of a prescription drug can still result in being arrested for driving under the influence. That's the punishment side of things. But if you smoke marijuana, if you're taking pills, if you're doing something that impairs your ability to effectively operate the car, and you cause a collision and you hurt someone, that is certainly going to be used as part of cause for a manslaughter if you killed someone, or for drunk driving if you hurt somebody. So certainly, please don't ruin your life with that. Bob, and I'll kind of share a personal story. One of the major reasons why I actually got into law enforcement is my best friend, when I was in high school, he was graduated magna cum laude from Tuskegee, and then went to Vanderbilt Law School. First year in law school, he's driving down the road with his friends, 4 of them, little Volkswagen Bug, and he ends up getting hit head on by a drunk driver. All 4 of those boys were killed. And it was that was the light bulb moment for me, where I'm like, hey, this is an event that never had to happen. This is totally preventable. Totally preventable. No one ever has to drink, get behind a car, and then drive. You don't have to do pills, get behind a car, and then drive. You don't have to smoke marijuana, get behind the wheel of a car and drive. And here's what I'll say. If anybody knows what college night is when it's the night before Thanksgiving. All the kids come back into town from college, and our downtown, so Little Hearts Avenue, which is usually dead at 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, becomes like a college town. I mean, so much so that sometimes it's so overwhelmed that we actually close the roads. And what I'm happy to say is we used to get DUIs at night. I'll usually have at least half my team on. So we'll have 15-ish cops on that night. And we've got some out in cars looking for DUIs. We've got some that are responding to the 911 calls like we normally do. And then we'll have like a downtown crew kind of assisting the bars and making sure that everybody's safe and we don't get the fights and all that. What I'll say is over the past, 10 or 15 years that I've been down here, I'm seeing smarter and smarter people, because instead of people leaving in those cars, I'm seeing parents come down and pick their kids up. What a great parent, right? That's awesome. And I'm also seeing Uber. A lot of people in Uber, Lyft, or whatever ride sharing service they use, they're sitting on a corner and they're getting picked up. So we're getting far fewer DUIs. So Bob, that's an excellent reminder. No matter what substance you may be using, please don't get behind the wheel of the car. All of them can result in an arrest, and worse, all of them can result in you harming someone else. And that's something that you got to live with for the rest of your life. Uh, the unholy pyro. So I've had this on every show, the Tesla police truck. This was actually made by one of our IT staff members. He knows I'm a little bit of a Tesla fan, so he actually 3D printed that. Like that's one of the coolest gifts I think I've ever gotten. Matt, our IT guy, gave that to me, and yeah, it's kind of a cool truck. Unfortunately, we're still running Fords and Chevys, or fortunately, we're still running Fords and Chevys, but it seems like those might be coming. All right, looks like that's all I've got in the chat. I'm not sure why, Sue, you gave me a boo. I'll have to timestamp that and see what I said that was boo worthy. But I appreciate everyone for joining me and for us being able to come together online like this. And this is just a great way to meet. But if you want to meet us in person, I'll see you tomorrow. As for tonight, we are 10:10, which means I'm off duty, but we're always 10:8 and in service to all of you. Thank you for joining.